I think, 4 cases directly in the breweries. In the other cases, they produce barley. They send the barley to a maltery in Germany or in Belgium, and then they use the malt produced with their barley. And so they can say that they have their own materials to produce. So these are the 3 big situations of Italy. But what I want to underline is the incredible growing that the movement has had. And the other thing, yes.
What is the name for the farming breweries in Italian?
Is birra agricola, birrifici agricoli. And birra agricola. Esatto. Birra agricola, so it's farming beer, but there is not a farming brewery, right? Okay. Because all this movement has one biggest problem. There is the fact that there is not a legal definition of what is craft beer. And that the microbreweries cannot write on the label that there is a craft beer. They can't. They can't write birra artigianale. They have to write birra, and then there are other definition of law that is documented, but I don't want to go deep in this. The fact is that there is no definition, so
there is no difference between my beers and Heineken. Okay, it's exactly the same for the law, of course, not for the the drinker.
And for taxes too.
For taxes, yes, of course, it's the same. It's really the same.
And this is a very big problem, because you have to imagine that you produce a beer that is not pasteurized, for example, that is not microfiltered, that use only water, hops, malt and yeast. No use of maize, for example, no use of rice, if not for creative purpose, because there are breweries that use rice, but they want to use rice because they live in a rice land, and so they love to produce beer with rice because they think that rice can add something. Instead, industry use maize, use probably glucose in some case. Yes. They use rice, they use whatever to lower the cost, because maize cost much low. The cost of maize is much lower than the cost of malt, and they use extract of hops instead of hops, because the cost is very big. It is really different, and from the legal point of view, there is no difference between that use maize, rice, glucose, and he that use no one of these. You can say my beer is different on the label, okay? What is usually known as a craft beer, I say mine, and then you can say yours point of view, is that craft beers is a beer that is not pasteurized, so is alive when it's in the bottle, is not microfiltered, and is done with real ingredients. So, nothing different from ingredients that are done. And the third point is that in a craft beer there is a brewer that knows exactly what is doing, producing its beer. There is not a recipe that anybody can do, anybody can try to do. And the brewer wants to do something that is recognizable, that has a strong identity. Identity is a very good word for craft beer, in my opinion. Pietro?
Just one more thing, there is a level of production, a limit for the production, okay? This is my opinion, of course. But in Italy we are growing very, very fast, okay? When the first pioneer of the Italian ale opened in 1996, their brew house was, the kettle was 2 hectoliters, 2.5 hectoliters, okay? Now, after 19 years, people who are going to start a brewery, they bought a brew house that is 2,000 liters. Okay, and this is becoming the entry level for the market. Okay, because there is more market for these beers now, and the increasing of the production is very high. And so I think that we Italian brewers, we have to think to a limit, okay? Because microbrewery is means micro, okay? And I think that we have to think about that, because the history of beers in the centuries is that there were also in Italy a lot of little beer producer all over Italy, okay? But after the Rivoluzione Industriale, Industrial Revolution, okay, all the small local brewery were closed because arrived on the market the industrial beers, okay, that was clearer and cheaper, okay. And I think that we run the same risk if we try to fight against the big brewery, okay. So I think that a limit of the production is a good thing to remain microbrewery. Also, it's very difficult, okay, because now in Italy we have a very small brewery, craft brewery, but such as Balaben, okay, that is one of the biggest, has completely another different of production. So it's not easy to be everyone d'accordo, to be agreed, okay, to find an agreement about the level of what is micro and what isn't micro. Anyway, the first beer is coming, and I don't want to leave the degustation, just to say the name. Well, this is a sort of Weizen beer, like Bavarian Weizen, but it's not brewed with Weizen, but with Dinkel. Dinkel or Spelt, English Spelt. Okay, and it's unmalted Spelt. And that grows in Brianza, near Monza, where I work and where I brew. And it's the tentativo is the trying to use raw materials that is from my country, okay? Because also this is very difficult in Italy, not only for hops, but also for barley and so on, okay? So it's not a Weizen, but if you, I think it's a Weiss, a Blanche beer, okay?
This is a good starting beers for our talking of this morning, because we just said that what we want to call beer is done with the 4 raw materials that we said before, and in this case there is one more that is pet, that is used with malt for the sugars, to obtain sugar from the cereal that then will be transformed in alcohol. And but it's important to underline why it is using spelt. He said use spelt because this spelt is cultivated closer to the brewery, so it's close in the same area of the brewery. That is Brianza, that is really close from here, and so it's a way that Birrificio del Carrobbiolo, that is the name of this brewery, use to in some way say, okay, this is something territorial, this is something from my place, this is something that can grow here, that has this characteristic only here, and they want to bring this characteristic to the beers, so that this beers is unique of this place. And this is something really something that in Italy many brewers have done, starting from 1986, because as I told you before, there is not a long tradition of producing beers. There is not, so there is, but it's something completely different from what is now. there is not a strong tradition of malting barley, so all the ingredients come from outside of Italy, malt from Germany, Belgium and UK, hops from USA, Australia, whenever you can imagine hops now is coming. And so the only point of identity of the beers was the brewer. That was Italian, that has in mind an idea of beer that take a style of beer and translate in an Italian way, but from its point of view. So what breweries started to do from the beginning, from 1996, was to try to use some ingredients that was really Italian and to put these ingredients into beers. I think that the first way was the use of chestnuts. Chestnuts were the first Italian ingredient used in the production of beer, to try to make Italian beers really Italian. Why chestnut? Because chestnuts are all over Italy. There is no region without chestnut in Italy. You have very different varieties of chestnuts in Italy. You have different ways of using chestnut. In some regions, chestnuts are boiled. In some other regions, chestnuts are reduced as burnt. In some other regions, they are reduced to flavor. In other regions, are smoked and dried. So you have different use of chestnut. And so the fact that the breweries and the brewers use chestnut in the way of the region used to use it was a way to say, okay, my chestnut beer is of my region because I use chestnut in this way. Then I think that the main reason why chestnut beer started to become something really, really rare of these 883 breweries now, I think that the 10